Yeah.
Okay, so tell us.
Well, yeah. It really this sort of big change around happened when I was at the start of my third year at Bristol, and having explored lots of sort of philosophy, obviously as part of my course, and other religions. I think the thing that struck me was that what Christianity uniquely held out as an offer, certainly in the Bible and from what I'd seen, was this sort of interaction and transformation from God. It wasn't just, well, believe these things and try and be a good person,
right,
or believe these things and hope for the best. You look at the Bible, I was looking at the lives of the people who I was mixing with a little bit, and you could see that, God was at work, really. And so, even though there were issues about, sort of Christianity and religion and all that stuff in the sort of formal sense that were probably quite off-putting, in structures and institutions, I was sort of, sort of considering it sort of quite seriously. And I suppose it all happened really over one weekend because I'd been a little bit drawn to kind of gambling, and I used to go along to this casino sometimes, not to spend a lot of money, just a little bit of money, but I just found it very, very absorbing and very, very compelling in a way that I didn't actually like, but I found myself quite hooked into that whole thing, which was a very bizarre thing, and I was aware that I didn't really want to, but I was being drawn in an unpleasant way. Anyway, so and I had an electric razor and it didn't work on this particularly, so I couldn't shave, so I thought I wouldn't go. So instead I stayed at home and I read the book of Daniel from the Bible for some reason, just randomly, because I had a Bible on my shelf. And I read the book of Daniel, which is all quite mysterious. Yeah. And also I got an earlier night than I would have done, and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so on the Monday, I was then in one of the libraries at the university, which I wouldn't normally have been in at that time of day, but I got up a bit earlier and stuff. And sitting opposite me, there was this bloke, and what I was reading was obviously a bit dull. So somehow we ended up having a chat about the book of Daniel, because it turned out he was a Christian.
Right.
And I asked him, what he thought about it, and he seemed to know a bit about it, and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so why don't you come round for a meal? This was on Monday. So, okay, so I did. So I went round to his flat, and he cooked me some, sort of pilchards and tomato cheese, tomatoes, and we had a meal and chat. And, while we were talking, I could see clearly, to me, somehow, I don't know how, but I could just tell, God's kind of at work in this guy somehow, and God's not really at work in me, and that actually I just felt very sort of tired and weary, really, and so it wasn't a great sort of triumphant thing, but it was more a kind of bit of sort of giving in, really, and just allowing myself to be, gently sort of cajoled over the line a bit, as it were. And so I basically said, okay, well, I'll sort of give it a go. Yeah, let's, So I sort of prayed a little prayer and whatever, and I felt very sort of neither convinced nor unconvinced, really. But I just thought, well, it's not a bad thing to do. Let's and let's sort of see what happens. And now this guy lived in, because you know the area, don't you? In Clifton, in Canning Square, and I was walking back to where I lived, and I was walking down, and this is probably about 200 yards into my journey. I was walking down Guthrie Road, which is in between Clifton College and the zoo.
Yeah.
You know it?
I know it well.
And I was on the left-hand side, and I was walking down, and I can still remember virtually the spot where I was. It was opposite where there used to be a little pavilion with a plaque to A.E.J. Collins, who got 690 not out in a junior house match in 1899, which is still the highest score ever in the history of cricket. Anyway, so I was just walking back, just feeling a bit sort of nothing, really.
Yeah.
And suddenly, just completely out of the blue, I just got completely kind of overwhelmed, really, by the power and the love and the fire and the life of God. And it was just an extraordinary moment. I was just completely unexpected. It was just the most extraordinary moment of my life, because it wasn't, and you know, I have to stress, it wasn't an emotion, it wasn't a sort of, and it was a whole dimension of me as a human being had opened up. So the way it wasn't an emotional thing. It wasn't. It was just it was a total thing, and involving whole new aspects and dimensions that I hadn't really experienced before. And it was just, it was a this is it moment, and I knew in that moment that my whole life had changed forever. I knew that this was it, and that I had the pearl of great price. This is it, ta-da! And it was better. And the thought was, this is better than I could have hoped. And the main thing was, now I'm alive. Now I know what it is to be human. This is it. And it was rather sweetly, I sent a message to all my future selves saying, this moment now this is the real thing. And if you ever look back and say, was it as real as that? Yes, it was.
Right.
This is just amazing. And it was like, somebody once said to me about Harrier jump jets. Don't know if you know about this, but Harrier jump jets that sort of do vertical things, and they said that apparently when the MOD was wondering whether to have them or not, they weren't very impressed until they looked at a film, and when they saw a film of it at work, so one frame it was in the frame, and the next frame it wasn't there.
Right.
It had gone. It was so sudden it was, and that's what it felt like. It was like suddenly I was in a different. It was like I was a different person. I was in a different world. It was like being in a film. It was the most extraordinary thing, and it was just the most perfect. And it was just completely overwhelming. It was wow. It was just brilliant, and I was just so aware that just this is God. He's it. This is the power of God. This is what I've really been wanting all this time.
Why do you think it happened right then, when you saw this plaque to...
Oh, that was irrelevant. I'm just that's just
that just happened to be the place.
Yeah, that just happened to be the place.
Right.
But I'm interested in the fact that when I prayed the prayer, nothing happened, and it was kind of a bit of a downer. No, not downer, but it was but it was soon after, sort of half an hour after, just walking back. I don't know why it didn't happen straight away, but it happened very soon, obviously within half an hour or so. It was just wonderful, and it was such because all the not turmoil, but all the sort of agonising from earlier, and all the sort of really holding out for something that was going to be real and authentic, and not being content with something that was being an actor or second best or okay, then I'll go along with this or that, but really holding out for had actually been. This was it. This is what I had been holding out for. I didn't know what it was until then, but now I knew, and it was a bit sort of crossing the switchblade-y kind of moment, really.
Yeah.
And it was great. And what I found was, one of the best things of all was that actually it wasn't just that it was a good feeling on the surface, but it was actually there was so much transformation underneath. So in those early months and years, I would sometimes try and write a list of all the things that had changed, and sort of 15 or 20 things. Some of which were addictions or compulsion that simply disappeared, and this was a good thing. It wasn't me sitting down saying, "Oh, now I'm a Christian, I mustn't do this, I mustn't do that," and try very hard. Actually, say like with the casino thing, I'd say, "Oh no." The next day, I remember I said, "Oh, this is the time when I'd normally go and I'd have a little battle within myself, and then end up going and expecting that to happen." And actually, there wasn't even a little battle. It was just as though it had never been. And the image that was in my mind at the time was as if you had a rutted field, and the ruts were all the sort of habits and whatever that you got into, and it just completely smoothed over. Wow. It was like there was no issue. I can't remember, there was no struggle over anything. It was all just, it was like the power of God had just completely wiped it all clean. It was amazing. And so I'd look back after 2 weeks and say, "Oh, I haven't done this," or "Oh, I haven't done that," or "I haven't thought about this or that," and it was just a tremendous blessing. It was great joy. And also, I found myself, looking back on it, I found, like the thing about even, and again, this is just my story, it's not saying what people shouldn't do, but I found I gave all my stuff away. So I had all these books, I had a really good collection of books actually, and I just lost all interest in reading. And not because I think reading is bad, I don't, but I suppose I've been looking for stuff in books and all these great sort of Russian novelists and all this stuff. And I just lost all interest in it. And I just felt moved to sort of give it all away, not as a sort of grand gesture, but just, I don't know, it just seemed right, really. So I gave them all away to the second-hand bookshop down the road, and my records and my music collection, I just gave it all away. I didn't even, and it was amazing. So for 6 months or so, or a year, I didn't listen to the radio, I didn't watch telly, didn't listen to music, didn't read any books. And it wasn't because I thought this is how I should live. This is just what I found myself doing, because I was just so caught up in the presence of God, and it lasted for months and months and months.
Wow.
Actually, it was just amazing. It was literally all day, every day. It was just like, whew, in the presence of God. It was just the most amazing time. I gave my guitar away. I had a guitar. I play guitar, don't you? Well, I used to play guitar every day. I just stopped playing it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just wasn't playing it, and I just took it to the Oxfam shop and said, "There you are, I have a guitar." It's just like everything just changed. And I think that Monday, I'm not sure, it wasn't Monday, but I don't know when it was. It's like early November or something like that. And this is an indication of what it was like. When it came to January, I hadn't done that much work for my degree, and I thought, well, I've got between January and May, and if I work really hard, I could get 2-1. And if I don't work hard, I'll get 2-2. That's all right. But so I drew up this timetable. It's really good, actually. I drew up a really good timetable which covered all the reading I should have done, and I kept to it. But what I remember very distinctly was that, this was kind of halfway through January, I said to God, "Lord, I'm sorry, we're going to have to tone this down a bit, because I've got to do all this work now." Because the presence of God was so strong that I couldn't have really. It's just really weird. But I just remember that. Again, I'm not saying that's good. I just remember. I remember that. I remember saying to God, "Actually, I'm sorry. Much as I love it, can we just tone this down a little bit so I can get on with my degree," which I did, and I got my 2-1. That was good.
That's really cool. I think we'll just have a little break, and we'll come back for the third bit in a second.
Okay, thanks.
So much time we got. We have